You know, math isn't just a bunch of numbers on a page that you had to learn in school. It's actually a hidden language that describes pretty much everything. From the price of your morning coffee to the orbit of a planet, it is all around us. So let's pull back the curtain and start decoding this language that shapes our entire world.
I mean, seriously, just think about it for a second. Let's say you're at a store, you see a sign for 20% off. What happens? Your brain instantly does this little calculation to figure out the new price. Well, guess what? That's algebra. And you probably don't even break a sweat. It's not just for a classroom. It's a tool you're already using every single day. So, here's the game plan for today. We're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, we'll start with the real basic building blocks. Then, we'll use those to actually measure the world around us. After that, we'll get into the math of change, and finally, we're going to put it all together to solve some real-world puzzles. All right, let's dive right in at the beginning. I want you to think of these first few formulas as your basic mathematical toolkit. They might look kind of simple, but trust me, once you get the hang of them, you'll be able to build some really amazing things. Every single time you buy something, a coffee, a new pair of shoes, anything, there's a really simple formula working behind the scenes that decides the price you pay. So what is it?
It's honestly this simple. The selling price, S, is just the original cost, C, plus whatever margin, M, the seller wants to make. This little formula is the absolute backbone of every business, from your corner coffee shop to the biggest companies in the world. It's the direct link between the cost of an item and that price tag you see.
And what about averages? Whether you're keeping an eye on your grades, your budget, or your fitness goals, finding the average is such a powerful tool. You just add up all the numbers and then divide by how many there are. And bam, you get that one number that kind of tells the whole story, a quick snapshot of the big picture. Okay, now that we've got the basics down, let's take these ideas and apply them to the physical world. This is where geometry comes in, the math of shapes and spaces. It's essential for everything from weekend home improvement projects to just, getting around. So imagine you want to put a fence around your garden, or maybe you're installing new baseboards in a room. You don't really need to know the area inside the space. You need to know the distance all the way around the edge. And that distance has a special name, the perimeter. For any rectangle, the perimeter, P, is simply 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So instead of having to measure all 4 sides one by one, this formula gives you a handy shortcut. It's a perfect example of how math helps you work smarter, not harder. Okay, so we figured out how to measure the outside boundary of a flat shape, but what about the space inside of it? How would you figure out, say, how much a box can actually hold? For that, we need to talk about volume. For a perfect cube, the volume, V, is just the length of one of its edges, E, cubed. So E times E times E. That one little calculation tells you the total amount of 3-dimensional space that cube occupies. It's that simple. So what about the outside of the cube? Like, what if you wanted to wrap it as a gift? Well, to find the surface area, S, all we need is the area of one of its flat faces, which is just E squared. And then you multiply that by 6. Why 6? Well, because a cube has 6 identical faces. See? It's a simple, logical process you can use for any cube, big or small.
The world around us is constantly changing, and this next section is all about the formulas that help us keep track of it all. We're talking about everything from the weather outside to the money in our wallets.
Converting between Fahrenheit and Celsius, it can be a real headache, right? But these 2 formulas make it super easy. If you look closely, they're basically mirror images of each other. They give you a clear step-by-step way to translate between the 2 scales, showing that fixed relationship that connects them. All right, let's switch gears and talk about money. Imagine you're a salesperson. Your paycheck probably isn't just a fixed number. It's tied directly to how well you do your job. So how in the world do you calculate your earnings when they're always changing based on your sales? Well, this formula models that situation perfectly. Your total earnings, E, are your base salary, S, plus a commission. In this case, it's 2% of your total sales value, V. It's a great example of how math can map out real-world financial situations. It combines a constant, your salary, with a variable, your sales, to give you a really clear picture of what you're making. Okay, it is time to put all of these new skills to the test. In this final section, we're going to tackle some real-world problems that might seem a little complicated at first, but as you're about to see, they're really just puzzles waiting for us to solve them with the tools we already have. Let's start with a classic scenario, tiered pricing. You've definitely seen this before. Think about your cell phone plan or your electricity bill or even a taxi fare. They all use this kind of model, where the rate you pay actually changes depending on how much of the service you use.
So the formula for a 9-minute phone call is the total cost, C, which equals X, that's the flat cost for the first 3 minutes, plus the cost for each additional minute, which is Y. But hang on a second, here's the tricky part. Notice we're not multiplying Y by 9, we're multiplying it by 6. Why is that?
Well, it's because that special rate, Y, only kicks in for the minutes after those first 3. So you have to subtract those first 3 minutes from the total of 9, and that leaves you with 6 additional minutes, and those are the ones that get charged at the Y rate. It's basically a 2-step problem solved with one elegant formula. And now for our final challenge, kind of the boss level for today. We're going to tackle a super common business problem that uses the exact same logic we just saw, tiered pricing, but this time with profit margins. This is where a company's profit rate actually changes after they hit a certain sales goal. We can build the final formula step by step. It's not as scary as it looks. First, we figure out the income from the initial 25,000 gallons. Easy enough. Then we calculate the income from any extra gallons sold, which is the total, N, minus that first 25,000. Next, we just add those two amounts together, simplify the algebra, and for the final step, convert the whole thing from cents into dollars. And after all those steps, we're left with this, a really clean, elegant formula. This single expression can tell the gas dealer their exact income in dollars for any amount of gas they sell over their threshold. And that right there is the power of math. It can take a complicated problem and boil it down to a simple, beautiful solution. So we've seen how formulas can help us understand everything from our own finances to complex business models. The point is, they aren't just abstract rules in a textbook. They're actual tools for making sense of the world around you. So I guess the real question is, what part of your world are you going to start to measure, analyze, and understand next?